Hi, I'm Jay Gruenke, founder of The Balanced Runner, and I've been helping runners from beginner to Olympian improve their form and performance since 2003. And I'm here today with another stuck-at-home running form tip for you. So today is about how to activate your glutes when you run. And there are a lot of videos on this on YouTube, so I gather that it's something that people want to know a lot about, and I certainly see in my practice when I ask new clients if there's anything that they've been working on or trying to do with their form. The answer is usually, or it's very often, something along the lines of, well, I've been trying to use my glutes more when I run. And here's how that goes. So, or actually before that even, let me say that I'm putting a resource for you in the description below that will help you activate your glutes better when you run. So click on show more under the description and scroll down and you'll see the link there to my Mind Your Running challenge, which will help you feel what you need to do with your whole body so that you use your glutes when you run. And that's really the crux of this. So you develop some sort of running injury, right? And you go to a physical therapist and they do an assessment, maybe if they're, trained to deal with runners and to understand running. They do an assessment and they tell you you have weak glutes. They probably also tell you you have a weak core because that's what they do. But or that you're not activating your glutes when you run. And then they give you clamshells to do, and other and hip and bridges, and other glute strengthening exercises to help build up your glute strength so that it's an appropriate amount of strength for a runner to have. And that seems pretty straightforward, right? But it doesn't actually guarantee in any way that you're going to actually use that new glute strength that you've been working so hard to develop when you run. And here's why, is because movement comes before strength and produces strength, right? So you need glute strength to run well. And because running well uses your glutes. And so if you're running well, your glutes will get strong because you're moving that way. If your running hasn't strengthened your glutes, is because you don't know how to move in a way that uses your glutes when you run. And so doing a bunch of glute strengthening exercises is just going to give you a little more muscle that you're not using, that you now need to tote around with you when you run. It doesn't help you know how to change the way you're moving so that you actually use that strength. And in fact, it is much more straightforward to learn how to change how you're moving so that you are moving in a way that uses your glutes. And then running becomes your glute strengthening exercise. So, just in terms of talking about having the strength to run well. Now, I'm not saying that there's any downside to additional strength and conditioning, especially if performance is a goal for you, but I'm talking about corrective exercise, that it doesn't work particularly well, that you need to learn how to run in a way that uses your glutes. So then the question becomes, how do you need to run so that you're using your glutes, right? And this is the part that everybody gets wrong. And the reason why is because people think about running as if all the movements that you normally make when you're running, your arms and your legs, as if you were doing them voluntarily, as if you were in fact lying down on your side on the ground, making the movements or doing something like this. So the muscles that are working right now, even though, with the exception of one leg, even though I'm making a movement that's a lot like running, they are completely different muscles, or it's the same body, but they're acting at different times and in different ways completely from how they would be acting if you were actually running, if you were going up into the air and landing on the ground, if you were covering ground. The muscle activation is completely not what it looks like. And but most of the advice that you'll come across on how to use your glutes in running is based on this idea, you know, that this is how we're using our muscles. And so people will tell you that your glutes, what they're supposed to be doing when you run is they're supposed to be preventing an anterior pelvis tilt. So anterior means forward, so that's tilting your pelvis this way. So you're supposed to contract your glutes to keep that from happening when you run. They are supposed to prevent a hip drop. A hip drop is where your pelvis tilts like this when you're on one leg. So you contract your glutes on this side, and that keeps your hip from dropping and keeps your waistband level, basically, keeps your pelvis level. And most importantly, that they extend your hips. So your glutes, and you can in fact see mine fire as I take my leg behind me. So that's an extension movement in my hip joint, that your glute does this. Your glutes, so there's a group of muscles, right? So that when, let me see, so that when you go here in running, it's your glutes that are responsible for this action and let you push off. And that is actually, believe it or not, it's not really correct, especially for distance running. So what your glutes actually do, and I've said this in other videos, and I will put links to those so that you can go more in depth on this. Your glutes' most important job when you run is to hold your head up, believe it or not. That butt head action, we could call it. So because you do need to lean forward when you run, I'm not going to explain why in this video. I have a whole playlist on that topic, and really mastering your forward lean is one of the very best things you could do for yourself as a runner, and it will get your glutes working. So I'm going to put the link to my forward lean playlist also in the description below. But suffice it to say, you do lean forward when you run. That means your spine is on a forward angle. And that means when you're in mid-stance, when you're really on your foot, even your butt looks like it's sticking out, though eventually you move past that point, right? But again, when you land in this position, you've got 2.7 times roughly your body weight pushing down because you've come down from the air. So it's more than just your body. Like right now, this is my body weight on this leg. But if I had landed, there would be more force going down. So if my head is in front of my pelvis, which it must be, then then there's nothing to keep my head from going like this except my glutes. So the glutes contract, and they keep me from hinging here and face planting. And that is when that is the, that is the point, according to EMG studies, when your glutes are most active in your running form. So the number one reason that you're having difficulty activating your glutes when you run is that you're not leaning forward and your head isn't in front of your pelvis. And how do you do that? Well, again, that's why I'm putting that playlist down below, and that's why I'm putting this resource down below. Actually, a series of quick lessons that will help you learn how to do that and get your whole body working right together. Because if you want to improve any one part in your running form, you need to improve your whole form and how everything works together, because everything affects everything else. So that's the most important thing that you need to do in order to get your glutes activating when you run. Your glutes do also, your gluteus medius in particular, indeed support you in this one-legged balance. So, but the thing about hip drop is not quite right. See, that gets, I'm sorry, I have to go back because I just want to point out that this thing that we're supposed to do, that everybody says you're supposed to do with your glutes to keep you from an anterior pelvic tilt, well, if you are leaning forward when you run, your pelvis is tilting forward too. The thing is, it's not making your back any more arched than it would be when you were upright because your head has also moved forward. And so your whole body is neutral but on a forward angle rather than trying to keep your upper body upright and your pelvis tilted forward. Then you have a problem. But then again, then you're not using your glutes because they're not supporting your head because your head is back over your foot after all, and your lower back feels horrible. So the thing about anterior pelvic tilt, wrong. You do need to lean forward. That's when your glutes work most. Okay, the thing about hip drop. So your pelvis does need to do that a little bit when you run. because this is part of your spring system. So you do use your gluteus medius in particular to keep you from going like this when you're on one leg. That wasn't any fun at all. But when you get it, it's the same as for the forward lean. When you get your head in the right place, which should be basically over the standing foot, not in the middle. So if your head is in between your two legs and you're trying to balance on one leg, you see I can barely do it. And oh, the effort out here. So that's excessive. And you could expect a definite risk of IT band syndrome in that case. But if the head comes over the foot, standing foot as it should, suddenly, ta-da, you can balance. The effort here it's still there, but it's no longer excessive. And you do get a little bit, again, because of this 2.7 times your body weight pushing down, you do get a little bit of hip drop. And that's part of your spring system because it's stretching the tissues here, it is stretching the tissues here, and so they recoil, and that's becomes part of your push off. So you need the right amount of that. It shouldn't be extreme. You do need to be balanced over one leg, and you will use your gluteus medius for that. So it's the devil's in the details there. And then the other things that you use your glutes for as a group, and especially gluteus maximus, is running uphill and accelerating. So, because in that case, you are pushing off harder. But you don't, outside of accelerating and running uphill, you don't use your glutes to extend your hip in running. And this is, again, according to EMG studies where they are measuring the muscle activation because you are not extending your leg. Your foot is stuck to the ground and your body is, largely due to momentum, passing it. And that doesn't require work in your hip joint extensors in order to do that. So you can do muscle strengthening exercises by doing this action on purpose. That's what most glute exercises do. That's a perfectly good way to strengthen, but it doesn't address it doesn't address when and how you use your glutes when you run, okay? So the most important things that you can do to really be able to activate your glutes when you run are to learn how to lean forward, and to make sure that tight calves are not getting in the way of your ability to lean forward, because if your calves are too tight to let you get into this position and get past here, then you will be running back here and then you won't lean forward. If that's the case for you, your quads get really sore when you run and you maybe even have knee pain. Actively mobilize your calves before you run so that that's not holding you back. Learn how to free your head to lean forward. So your head has to, as part of a forward lean, make this movement so that you're not stuck looking down at the ground in your forward lean. Your head needs to be free. Again, watch the Glute-Head Connection video that I'm putting in the description. So learning to free your head to be able to do that is really important. And then your core needs to move. That's a whole other subject. Again, just watch the videos below. But if you do those three things, you're going to suddenly find that you're starting to use your glutes when you run. And the problems that you've been having, that you've been told come from not using your glutes, are going to fade away. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope that's helpful. And thanks so much to the folks who came on live. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notifications. I live stream every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. And please like this video so that YouTube knows that it's valuable and to share it with other runners who need this information. Thanks so much. Enjoy, and I will see you next week.